I watched him disappear into the crowded station and went back to the lab. That van was still playing its loud music as it drove down the street. Probably not a suspicious van at all or anything. 5 hours had passed since the operation had begun. The only sound in the room was of Daro's fingers on the keys.
今のところ気づかれてはないと思われ。まだかかりそうか。早くても3時間くらいは。
I guess it wasn't going to be easy after all. Daro must have been exhausted, but he was still working. Mayuri and the others were sending me regular messages. Mayuri had paired off with Lukiko and Ferris with Suzuha since they knew each other so well. They were doing a great job working together and running around Tokyo. Suzuha had told me that she'd seen shady-looking people several times. Mocha had sent me a message saying that they'd taken the bait. For now, the operation was succeeding without anyone getting hurt. But I didn't expect it to last forever. I wanted to get Kiriso's memory data deleted as fast as possible, but in the end, my only choice was to rely on Daru. I remembered how he looked 25 years in the future. Even in that far distant future, he was still my friend. Until a little bit ago, Maho had been resting to recover from her exhaustion, but at some point she must have gotten up. She handed me a stack of papers. It was a printout of Stratfor's report. She must have been looking at it after she'd woken up. There were rows of names, sexes, and ages, and other information. She pointed her small finger at one of the names. It said, Kagari Shiina. Of course, I knew it was known as a possibility. That's why they'd been looking for her. And she had Kiriso's memories too. But still, it was one thing to suspect it, and another to see it proof. That made me feel a lot better. If Kagari still had Kiriso's memories, I would have seen a repeat of what happened in the last world line. This must be another effect of the world line change. But there was still no doubt that she had been in Stratfor's hands for years. And she'd been the subject of many experiments during that time. Maho must have been thinking the same thing I was. Kagari was alone with Yuki at Daro's hideout right now. The ringing that suddenly interrupted her conversation was coming from Daro's phone. I had a bad feeling. I grabbed the phone out of his hands and put it up to my ear. What was going on? Was Yuki really... No, that wasn't possible. If Yuki was working for Stratfor, she wouldn't be calling me. But then why had Kagari run off on her own? I hit the button to switch the call to speakerphone. Damn van. There's our activation music. Was this the one I'd seen this afternoon? Brainwashing.
特定の音楽を耳にすれば自発的に行動するよう洗脳されていたんじゃないかしら。そうとでも考えなければこの状況で自分から進んで飛び出すとは思えない。
That song the van was playing. It was K6205. The magic flute sent to lead Kagari astray.
ファイルにも書かれているわ。椎名かがりは適合性に非常に優れているため目下行方を捜索中って。
くそ。
They probably had vans like that all over Japan, not just Akihabara, and she'd fallen right into their trap.
オカリン。
It was obviously Strat 4 that had gone after Kagari, which meant that all we could do was... And there was another call. This time it was to my phone. I'd had Ferris prepare several cell phones for my use in this operation. One to use to call everyone, one to give to Kagari, and... The call was coming from the phone I'd given to Kagari. It probably wasn't from her, though. Who could it be? The digitally altered voice made the caller seem even more eerie.
そうだ。お前は。
椎名かがりは我々の手中にある。交換条件は言わなくてもわかるな。
Kurosa's laptop and hard drive.
考える時間をくれ。
考える？何を考える必要がある？交換は明日だ。場所と方法は追って連絡する。
They hung up.
クリスの PC とハードディスクと交換だそうだ。で、どうするん？
かがりが洗脳にあっていたなんて。
Suzuha was gritting her teeth in frustration as she listened to us. I'd had her come back immediately after the call, and I'd brought Moeka Kiryu to the lab as
率
well.
直に教えてもらいたい。仮に相手の要求に従ったとして、かがりを返してもらえると思うか？
思わない。
Moeka gave her honest opinion.
私もそう思う。相手は洗脳なんて汚い手を使う人間だ。必要なくなれば容赦なく消すだろう。最悪、あなたもやられる。
The only reason they would have called me specifically is that they knew I had information they'd wanted to keep hidden. After what I'd gone through already, I could safely assume they'd show no mercy. And they were after what Kurosa had left behind. Her memories and her belongings. I didn't want them causing any more wars. Which meant there was only one thing I could do.
力乗り込んで、かがりを取り戻すしかないな。
It was dangerous, but it was the only way. Mayuri and the others were still out there fighting. Which meant they should still think I was running around the city.
乗り込むって、そんな相手がどこにいるのかもわからないのに。
どこにいるかなら知ってるさ。
本当か？おじさん、いつの間に？
鈴葉、手伝ってくれるか？
オキドキ。
I turned toward Moeka, who shook her head.
付き合えない。
I bet.
ダメよ。二人でなんて危険すぎる。
いや、大勢で動くよりも危険は少ないかもしれない。
And I knew the fate wasn't going to let me die for a little while longer.
マユリさんたちには言わないの？
言えば心配かけるだろうからな。ダル、引き続きロックの解除を頼む。それからスマホは通話状態にしておいてくれ。オキドキ。
おじさん、これを。
Suzu handed me a semi-automatic pistol.
もしもの時は自分の身は自分で守るんだ。
I hesitated but decided to take it. It was the first time in my life I'd ever held a gun, and it was a lot heavier than I expected to be. The lights were still on the building in Kanda. Even at this hour, the gate was open. That's how colleges were. As expected, we made it inside with no trouble.
ここにかがりが。
ああ、そのはずだ。
If Dara's information from 2036 was right, Stratfor's base was here at my university, Tokyo Denkai. Several buildings occupied the school's Conda campus: Building 1, Buildings 5 through 7, and Buildings 11 through 15. Buildings 5, 6, 10, and 15 were scattered throughout the surrounding neighborhood, but the remainder were in their own isolated area. The only two of them that with basements were 11 and 15. And my guess was that Stratford's base was here, in Building 11. It was not only the building with the newest equipment, but it was a big building with 17 floors and a lot of foot traffic going in and out. I didn't know how many people Stratford had been working for them, but at least some of them had to have been out looking for me, which meant this place would be less well guarded than usual. And I had Suzuha with me too. This was doable. Hashtag doable. I led Suzuha straight down the stairs. There were 3 elevators in the building, but Suzuha had decided that taking them would be dangerous. They could potentially be trapped. The problem was what lay down below. There were 20 rooms of varying sizes in the 2-story basement. Which one of them was their base?
おじさん、こっち。
わかるのか。
思い出した。ここなら昔潜入した。私が知ってる建物はもう崩れかけで、外観も全然変わってたからわからなかったけど、間違いない。
Suzuha led me down the corridors without hesitation. With her gun in her hand and her hips dropped low to the ground to avoid making noise as she ran, she looked like a cat. She stopped in front of one of the rooms and nodded to me. It seemed no different than any of the others, but there was no nameplate on it. This is supposed to be a large generator room, as I recalled.
私はかがりを救出する。おじさん、自分の身は自分で守ること。
I took the Glock out from my belt. It was heavy in my hands. Suzuha had taught me how to use it, but I'd never fired it before and wasn't sure I'd be able to. But it would still serve as a bluff.
行くよ。3、2、1。
Kick that door open. Or to shoot the doorknob. That works too. After she finished her countdown, Suzuha shut off the doorknob, kicked open the door, and ran into the room. She did it all in one swift movement. I ran in after her and realized immediately that something was wrong. The first thing I noticed was the stench. It was an iron smell, strong enough to make you puke. Blood. The floor of the room was covered with blood. There were bodies too. 4 or 5 of them. Of course, Suzuha hadn't done it. It was already like that when we got here. Suzuha was slowly working her way forward. I followed her. Some of the bodies were Japanese and some were American. The room continued on. A large man was laying face down next to a half-open door. And next to him was... The voice saying my name was voluptuous and feminine, and its accent was foreign. Dr. Reyes spun around quickly and smoothly like a dancer. Kagari was seated behind her.
Kagari!
So this is probably the room we were in that first ending we got to. There was some kind of strange mechanical device over her head. No matter how much I called out her name, she didn't move an inch. Her smile was sharp and cold and completely lacked the warmth I'd seen when we first met. Suzuha had already had her gun drawn on Reyes, but Reyes didn't seem concerned the slightest. Tenouchi had said that, come to think of it, that the group looking for Kagari was with the Western military, and he'd wondered if a normal spy would have taken their own life. Suzuha laid the gun at her feet, frustrated.
ちゃんと持ってきてくれたの？あらあら、いけない子ね。持ってきていないなら、こちらとしては椎名かがりは渡せないわ。
She said Kagari was asleep, and I looked closer. I saw that her eyelids weren't fully closed. From what I could see of her eyes, they were empty and devoid of light.
残念だけど、まだ何もしていないわ。彼らが使っていた子守歌をちょっと聞かせてあげただけ。でも、あなたが交換条件に応じる気がないみたいだから、これから始めてしまおうかしら。
She'd rubbed Kagari's cheeks with the barrel of the gun, a look of ecstasy on her
クリス
face.
の PC とハードディスクは特別な場所に隠してある。かがりを渡さないなら、こっちも教えるつもりはない。先にかがりを解放しろ。
交渉は無駄よ、リンタロウ。そっちが渡す気がないなら、こっちはこっちのやり方をさせてもらうわ。
It wasn't a threat or a bluff. Reyes was acting like this was an everyday conversation. With all the blood and stench around us, that somehow made it even creepier.
これはあなたがやったのか。